Welcome. I know it's been a while, and it's been a really while. Well, don't worry, we're coming back. Thank you for everybody who has reached out. Well, he hasn't been. We didn't decide to stop. We just wanted to reconcentrate our mind and make sure that we're being aligned with the Holy Spirit. We also needed some moment of meditation, just rearranging ourselves. But anyways, my wife is not present today, but we'll be back tomorrow. We're gonna start full swing, and we're gonna really go really hard. But I just want to kickstart the year back by saying Happy New Year, of course. And but I want to talk about vulnerability. What is vulnerability? I think as us Christians, I think that we have not really, we have tried to really grow with God and but shy away from vulnerability. But the Bible constantly telling us to learn how to surrender. And the thing that is like, what do we surrender? How do we surrender? So the two we are made up of a spirit, the soul, and the body, or the flesh. So the body is what we call, it's not really like what we talk about your physical body. It's really about your earthly desires, and or what we call your ego. Okay, so your ego does not like to be vulnerable, and but then your soul in itself likes to be vulnerable, because it is only in vulnerability that your soul can learn from your spirit. And if we don't allow the soul to be vulnerable, then issues, then the soul cannot mature, the soul cannot grow. And the whole purpose is for your soul to grow, because your soul is supposed to grow and mirror your spirit, which is really, your spirit is directly from God. So how do we? So what does that even mean? When we say what does it mean for your soul to be vulnerable? Well, you've seen a lot of situations where you find yourself in a situation where there's something going on, and you don't want people to know about it. You don't want people to know about your bank. You don't know. You're trying to hide it from people. Then out of a sudden, somebody slip that in, and you let that go. And but once it is all in the open, there's a sigh of relief. Then you start to wonder, but why was I even nervous in the first place? The reason is because your ego, or the I in you, is trying to, doesn't like to be vulnerable, because it is controlled by it's controlled by the evil one. The evil one is what we call the naked emperor. Anything that's naked does not like to be put to shame. If you see in the book of Genesis, Genesis 3, when they said Adam and Eve, they were walking they were walking in the Garden of Eden, and they were naked. And they didn't know about it, because it was just soul that were all. It was just soul that was around, that was moving around. They didn't have physical flesh. But once they seen flesh came upon, at that time they looked at themselves and they knew that they were naked. They became vulnerable, physically vulnerable. And God is like, no, you're not. Who told you that you're naked? And it's the same thing that we always go through is, if you allow your soul to take over your flesh and says, I don't care. Why do we go around and we buy big cars and buy big house and just be in big houses and everything? I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that, but the issue is because we don't want to be vulnerable. We don't want to see. We don't want people to see us as we're big, as we have all of these things. But if you be in the point that I don't care about being vulnerable, if I have to drive a Toyota Camry or drive a Toyota Camry, I don't need a Benz. If I get a Benz, fine. If I don't get a Benz, it's okay. All I need is a car. All I need is a dependable car. You see, now you've taken yourself away now, and your spirit now can ride, and your soul can ride over. Because the soul wants to be vulnerable. But even to even enjoy the things of the earth, even when we make statements like, God's grace is sufficient. What does that even mean? But you see, that statement came in when Paul says, there was a thorn in my flesh, and 3 times I begged God to take that away from me. But he refused. He said, my grace is sufficient for you. What does that mean, my grace is sufficient for you? Because he followed up by saying that, because when you are weak, my strength is made perfected. When you are vulnerable, God's strength is made perfected. When you're vulnerable, when you let go, when you learn to surrender, then the Spirit of God comes now and take over. But when you're holding on, then you cannot grow. You cannot go beyond. Then you keep doing the same thing over and over. You're moving from one thing to the other, and you can never reach your true essence. Another thing which I was trying to say is, we are all light beings. We are all creatures of God. God is light. Therefore, there's an essence of light in all of us. So therefore, it is not, but when we talk about light also is manifested based on the degree of illumination, right? So if you want a light in your room, you will not go and get a very bright light that can light up a stadium. But at the same time also, if you want light in your stadium, you're not going to have a little bulb from your room, because it will not suffice. So the key thing about it is that if you want to manifest in real, you have to crank up your light, your illumination, so it should be bright, like blinding bright. But how do you do that? You do that by allowing your soul to be vulnerable, to do what it wants to do, which means that you have to allow your flesh to submit to your soul and not the other way around. Therefore, you're not ashamed if your account is $5 or 10 million. It doesn't bother you. You're a child of God. You're made perfect. Everything about you is perfect. You don't worry about being the best dressed person. You don't worry about being the most respected person. Those things does not matter anymore. The only thing that matters is your relationship with God. The only thing that matters is, who does God say I am? You know, King Solomon says that God put eternity in our heart, in the human heart. But that is blocked by the physical. So that is why the flesh does not want you to be vulnerable. Because if you are vulnerable, guess what? You will see what God put in your heart. And if you see what God be in your heart, then you become the true image of God. We go around, we make statements like, oh, I was made in the image of God, I'm a child of God. Are you really? If somebody takes a picture of me and they show me that picture, I expect that picture to look like me. If they take that picture and they show it to my best friend, will my best friend say, that's me? If we are like a picture of God, can somebody else see that picture that have seen God and say, yeah, that's God? Most of the answer for most of us, including myself right here, is no. So our quest should not be in trying to be of the world. It is to trying to be back into the image of God, because that is who we truly are. We are already perfect. You are perfect, I'm perfect. The thing about it is that we've been blinded by the world. The only way for us to see that is to learn how to allow our soul to be vulnerable so that we become true nature. Because our emptiness can never be filled by the world. It can only be filled by God. Well, that's just a little taste of what's gonna be coming forward. I hope you've enjoyed this. As usual, like, share, comment. I want to hear your thoughts. I want to hear what you want to hear. But again, we're allowing the Holy Spirit to guide us. We don't make topics, the Holy Spirit does. Come and be blessed. We're all getting blessed. I love you all and one love. Thank you and God bless you.